At the holiday dinner, my mom announced, starting January, you'll be paying your sister's mortgage. She has kids. My dad added, family sacrifices. I nodded and said, I won't pay anything else. That day, my sister's life began to fall apart. The audacity. That's the only word for what my mother did at that holiday dinner. 23 people around the table. Good china. Candles flickering. My Aunt Patricia's sweet potato casserole that nobody actually likes but everyone pretends to love. Normal holiday chaos, right? Then my mother stood up, tapped her wine glass and announced, starting January, Charlotte will be paying Brittany's mortgage. She has kids to think about. Actually laughed. A sharp, disbelieving bark that made my cousin Derek look up from his phone. Surely she was joking. But my dad nodded and said, family sacrifices. That's what we do. They were dead serious. My sister Brittany didn't even look uncomfortable. She was on her fourth glass of wine, examining her fresh manicure like mom had just announced dessert. When she caught me staring, she mouthed thank you with this little smile. Thank you, thank you. You know what my first thought was? Not, how dare they, it was, how much is her mortgage? Because that's how trained I was. 3 years of emergencies, and just this once had turned my brain into a calculator, automatically figuring out how to make their problems fit my budget. My grandfather, Grandpa Raymond, squeezed my arm under the table. Hard. We'd had this exact conversation 2 weeks ago when I'd broken down in his kitchen about where all my money was going. You say yes to this, he'd warned, and you'll be paying it for the rest of your life. They'll never stop. So I did something I'd never done before. I set down my fork and looked my mother straight in the eyes. I won't pay anything else, I said. The room went silent. Excuse me. My mother's smile froze on her face. I won't be paying for anything else. Not the mortgage. Not the car payments. Not the emergencies. I'm done. Brittany's mouth fell open. Charlotte, don't be ridiculous. Ridiculous? I've been funding your life for 3 years while you go clubbing 4 nights a week. Charlotte Elizabeth Morrison. My dad's voice had that warning tone. We are your family. Family doesn't assign each other bills at holiday dinners, Dad. My mother stood up fast, her chair scraping the floor. After everything we've done for you. Done for me? Name one thing you've done for me in 3 years that wasn't asking for money. Silence. Someone's phone buzzed. The candles flickered. Brittany recovered first, her voice dripping with condescension. You're being so dramatic. What else are you even spending your money on? It's not like you have kids or a husband or a social life. Your apartment is tiny. What do you even need money for? Can you believe someone would say that out loud? I grabbed my purse. Dinner was lovely, Mom. I'm leaving. You sit down this instant. No. I'm done sitting down. I'm done shutting up. And I'm done paying. Grandpa Raymond stood beside me. I'll walk you out, sweetheart. As I headed for the door, Brittany's voice followed me. She'll come around. She always does. That's what killed me most. The absolute certainty that I would crack. That I'd come crawling back, checkbook in hand. They really thought they knew me that well. Outside, Grandpa Raymond walked me to my car. Proud of you, he said. They're going to lose their minds, aren't they? Oh, sweetheart. It's going to get worse before it gets better. He was right. By the time I got home 20 minutes later, I had 16 missed calls and 47 texts. That, Brittany. My Aunt Carol, who I hadn't heard from in 8 months. The voicemails started apologetic. Charlotte, honey, let's talk calmly. By number 8, Mom had dropped the pretense. I didn't raise you to be this selfish. Brittany's text went from, come on sis crying face, to you're really going to let your niece and nephew suffer? My niece and nephew. The ones I'd been watching for free 2 or 3 nights a week. The ones whose daycare I'd paid for when Brittany was short. The ones whose Christmas presents came from my credit card. I didn't answer any of them. Not one call or text. For 3 days I went silent. I worked, came home, watched my phone blow up and didn't engage. Grandpa Raymond texted every morning, still proud. Don't you dare give in. I wasn't planning to. But then came Thursday night. 9 o'clock. I was in pajamas eating leftover Chinese food when someone started pounding on my door. I looked through the peephole. Brittany. Still in her clubbing outfit, heels I knew cost $180. And in her arms, sleeping, was my 4-year-old niece Emma. I opened the door. I need you to watch her, Brittany said, trying to push past me. I blocked the doorway. No. What do you mean no? I have plans. I texted you 2 hours ago. I didn't answer. That should have told you something. Are you seriously doing this? She's 4. She's asleep. You just have to let her sleep on your couch for 3 hours. Where's Mason? Tyler has him. And where are you going? Her jaw tightened. That's not your business. Then Emma's not my responsibility. Take her home and cancel your plans. We stared at each other and I saw the moment she realized I wasn't caving. You've changed, she hissed. Ever since Grandpa started filling your head with this independent woman bullshit. He reminded me I'm allowed to have boundaries. Boundaries? She laughed, ugly and sharp. You know what Mom said? That you've always been jealous of me. That you can't stand that I have kids and a life and you're just alone. There was what they'd been saying behind my back. My throat felt tight but my voice was steady. Good night, Brittany. I closed the door. She banged on it for 5 minutes, screaming about what a terrible person I was. How I was destroying the family. Emma started crying, confused and scared. That broke my heart. But I didn't open the door. Eventually Brittany left. The hallway went quiet. I sat on my floor in my tiny, insulted apartment, and I knew I'd just declared war on my entire family. Do you think I did the right thing? Because the next morning, I woke up to discover that refusing to babysit was apparently worthy of a full family intervention, and trust me, you can't imagine how far my mother was willing to go. The intervention happened at my office. My office. On a Friday afternoon. During work hours. I was in the middle of a budget review with my manager when my assistant knocked on the conference room door, looking panicked. Charlotte, I'm so sorry, but your mother is in the lobby and she's brought people. People. Plural. I excused myself, walked to the lobby and found my mother, Brittany, my Aunt Carol, and, I kid you not, Brittany's 2 kids, Mason and Emma, sitting on the leather couches like they were waiting for a doctor's appointment. My mother stood when she saw me. We need to talk. I'm at work, Mom. Exactly. Since you won't answer our calls, we had no choice. I glanced at the receptionist, whose eyes were wide with second-hand embarrassment. 2 of my coworkers were pretending not to watch from across the lobby. You can't be here, I said quietly. We're family, Aunt Carol chimed in. Family comes first. Brittany stood up, hoisting Emma onto her hip. Look at your niece, Charlotte. Look at her and tell me you don't care that she's going to lose her home. Emma looked confused. Mason was playing on a tablet, completely oblivious. Do you see what they were doing? Using children as props. In my workplace. I'm calling security, I said. My mother's face went red. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I walked back to the conference room, my hands shaking, and told my manager I had a family emergency. Which was true, just not the kind that usually happens in corporate lobbies. By the time I returned, security was already there. My mother was arguing with them, Aunt Carol was crying, and Brittany was recording everything on her phone. For proof, she said when she saw me looking. So everyone can see what you've become. They left. But not before my mother announced loudly enough for half the floor to hear. This isn't over, Charlotte. You can't abandon your family. I went back to my desk. My manager pulled me aside later and gently suggested I take the rest of the day. Family stuff is hard, she said. Take care of yourself. I drove straight to Grandpa Raymond's house. He took one look at my face and put the kettle on. They came to your work. How did you know? Because your mother called me after, screaming about how I turned you against the family. He handed me tea. I told her the only person who turned you against them was her. What did she say? That I'm a bitter old man who's jealous she has a real family. I started crying then. Just broke down at his kitchen table. They showed up with the kids, Grandpa. They brought Emma and Mason to my office like hostages or something. He sat down across from me, his weathered hands wrapped around his own mug. They're desperate. Brittany's mortgage payment is due in 2 weeks, and for the first time in 3 years, you're not there to catch her. Good, I said, and I meant it. It's going to get worse, sweetheart. They're going to try everything. What else can they possibly do? He smiled, but it was sad. Oh, you'd be surprised what people do when their money source dries up. I found out that very night. I got home around 7 to find Brittany sitting on the steps outside my apartment building. No kids this time. Just her in jeans and a sweater, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Can we talk? She asked. Just us. No mom, no drama. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on my couch, the one she'd insulted at Thanksgiving, and for a long moment she just looked around my apartment like she was seeing it for the first time. It's actually nice, she said quietly. Your place. I was a jerk to say that stuff. Yeah. You were. I'm sorry. I waited. There had to be more. Things are tight right now, she continued. Tyler's hours got cut and the mortgage is killing us and... Brittany, stop. Just hear me out. No. Because this is the part where you tell me how hard things are and how much you need help and how I'm the only one who can save you. Right. She looked down at her hands. I know I've asked for a lot. You haven't asked, Brittany. You've demanded. You've guilt-tripped. You've used your kids as leverage. But you've never actually asked. I'm asking now. The answer is no. Her face hardened. Just like that, the soft sister act vanished. Fine. Then Mom was right about you. Right about what? That you're selfish. That you've always been jealous that I have the life you want. That you're alone and bitter and... Get out. Charlotte. Get out of my apartment. Now. She left. But at the door she turned back. You're going to regret this. When Mason and Emma are homeless, when they're asking why Aunt Charlotte doesn't love them anymore, you're going to regret it. I closed the door in her face for the second time that week. Do you think I was too harsh? Because that night lying in bed I wondered. I wondered if I was really doing the right thing or if I was just being cruel. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Grandpa Raymond. They called me again. Your mother wants to come over tomorrow to talk sense into you. I told her no. Stand firm, Charlotte. Stand firm. Right. But what happened next made standing firm a lot harder than I thought. Because the following Monday I got a call from my bank. Apparently, someone had tried to use my credit card to pay a $2,400 mortgage payment. The charge was declined. Thank God I'd lowered my limit. But the billing address? Brittany's house. She'd stolen my credit card information. My own sister had committed fraud. And when I called to confront her, she didn't even deny it. You weren't using it, she said, like that made it okay. And I'm family. It's not stealing if it's family. That's when I knew. This wasn't going to end with apologies and boundaries. This was going to end with war. What do you think I did next? Actually, I'll tell you because what I did changed everything. I reported her to the police. My own sister. I filed a fraud report for identity theft and credit card fraud. The officer taking my statement looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, you understand this could result in criminal charges against your sister? I understand. Family disputes usually. This isn't a dispute. This is theft. I walked out of that police station feeling like I'd swallowed glass, but I did it. Grandpa Raymond was waiting in the parking lot. Proud of you, he said. That took guts. I feel sick. That's because you're a good person doing a hard thing. There's a difference between being kind and being a doormat. The call from my mother came 30 minutes later. I'd never heard her scream like that. The police just left Brittany's house. What have you done? She stole from me, Mom. She's your sister. Family doesn't call the cops on family. Family doesn't commit fraud either, but here we are. She hung up on me. Then immediately called back. You drop those charges right now. No. Charlotte, so help me God. Mom, I have to go. I blocked her number. Then Dad's. Then Brittany's. Then Aunt Carol's. The silence that followed was deafening. For 3 days, nothing. No calls, no texts, no ambushes. I actually started to relax. Maybe they'd finally gotten the message. Then Tuesday evening I came home to find my apartment door unlocked. My heart stopped. I pushed it open slowly, expecting the worst. A break-in, vandalism, who knows what. Instead I found my mother sitting on my couch, a key in her hand. Where did you get that? I demanded. I'm still on your emergency contact list at the building. The manager gave it to me. She set it on my coffee table. We need to talk. You broke into my apartment. I used a key. That's not breaking in. She looked tired. Older than I'd ever seen her. Please. Just sit down. Against every instinct I sat. But I kept my phone in my hand. The charges against Brittany, Mom said quietly. They're serious, Charlotte. She could go to jail. She should have thought of that before stealing my credit card. She's desperate. Tyler lost his job. Not just reduced hours, he was fired. 2 weeks ago. She didn't tell anyone because she was ashamed. I felt a flicker of something. Not quite sympathy, but something. That's not my problem to solve. She's your sister. She's a thief. Mom flinched. You've changed. The Charlotte I raised would never. The Charlotte you raised was a doormat, I interrupted. And you liked her that way. Easier to use. How dare you? No, Mom. How dare you? How dare you decide my money belongs to Brittany? How dare you show up at my job? How dare you break into my home? She stood up. I came here to tell you that if you don't drop the charges, you're no longer part of this family. The words hung in the air between us. Is that supposed to be a threat? I asked. It's a choice. Your sister or your pride. It's not pride, Mom. It's self-respect. And if that means I'm not part of this family, then maybe this family isn't worth being part of. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. Then she picked up the key and walked to the door. Don't come to Thanksgiving next month, she said. Don't call. Don't visit. As far as I'm concerned, I have one daughter now. The door closed behind her with a soft click. I sat there in my violated apartment and I cried. Not because I regretted what I'd said, but because it hurt anyway. Grandpa Raymond came over within an hour. I texted him what happened and he brought takeout and his presents, which was all I needed. She'll come around, he said. You don't know that. I do. Because in about 2 weeks, when Brittany's house goes into foreclosure proceedings, your mother is going to realize she can't fix this. And she's going to have to face what she's done. What if she doesn't? He squeezed my hand. Then you still did the right thing. And you'll have me. The foreclosure notice came exactly 12 days later. I know because Brittany called me from a number I didn't recognize, crying so hard I could barely understand her. They're taking the house, Charlotte. The bank is taking the house. Mason and Emma are going to be homeless and it's all your fault. Stop, I said firmly. This is not my fault. You bought a house you couldn't afford. You spent money on clubs and clothes instead of bills. You committed fraud when I said no. These are your choices, Brittany. Please, she sobbed. Please, I'm begging you. Just this once. Just help me save the house. No. What am I supposed to do? And here's where it got interesting. Because I'd been thinking about this. I'd been thinking about it a lot. You have options, I said. Sell the house. Move somewhere cheaper. Get a full-time job instead of part-time. Stop going out 4 nights a week. Actually budget. Act like an adult. I can't sell, we're underwater on the mortgage. Then let it foreclose and start over. People do it every day. You're really going to let your niece and nephew go through this? I'm not letting anything happen. You are. This is your consequence, Brittany. She called me names then. Things I won't repeat. Then she hung up. I sat there with my phone in my hand and I felt free. Lighter than I had in years. The next call I got was the one I didn't expect. It was from Tyler. Brittany's husband. The guy I'd maybe spoken to 5 times in 8 years. Charlotte? It's Tyler. Please don't hang up. I'm listening. I need you to know something. I didn't know. About the money. About how much Brittany was taking from you. She told me you were helping because you wanted to, that it was gifts, not this. I didn't know what to say. I found out last week when the fraud investigator came, he continued. She'd been lying to me too. About a lot of things. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. And thank you. Thank me. For stopping it. She needs help, Charlotte. Real help. Not money. And she was never going to get it as long as everyone kept enabling her. We talked for 20 minutes. He told me things I didn't know. About Brittany's spending, her drinking, the credit cards she'd maxed out. He was filing for separation. Taking the kids. He'd already called a lawyer. After we hung up, I called Grandpa Raymond. Tyler's leaving her, I told him. Good. Maybe she'll finally hit bottom. Is it wrong that I don't feel bad? Sweetheart, feeling bad for someone doesn't mean you have to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. But here's what I didn't expect. What nobody expected. The person who called me next changed everything. And I mean everything. It was Brittany's neighbor, Angela. I'd met her maybe twice at birthday parties. She had my number from a group text about Mason's soccer carpool from years ago. Charlotte, this is Angela Brenner. From next door to your sister. Hi, Angela. Is everything okay? No, not really. Listen, I probably shouldn't be calling, but Brittany left the kids alone. Emma's been crying on the porch for an hour and Mason won't let me help because he says his mom told him not to talk to neighbors. My blood went cold. Where's Brittany? I don't know. Her car's gone. I tried calling Tyler but it went to voicemail. He's at work. He works nights now. I grabbed my keys. I'm 20 minutes away. Can you stay with them until I get there? Of course. I drove way too fast. When I pulled up, Angela was sitting on Brittany's porch steps with both kids. Emma's face was tear-streaked and red. Mason looked scared. Aunt Charlotte. Emma ran to me and I scooped her up. Hey baby. You okay? She nodded against my shoulder. Mason stayed where he was, defensive. Mom said she'd be right back. She just went to get groceries. It was 9 p.m. The grocery store closed at 10. Angela pulled me aside. This is the 3rd time this month I've found them alone. I didn't want to call CPS, but Charlotte, it's getting worse. Yesterday I saw her leaving at noon and she didn't come back until after midnight. Does Tyler know? I told him last week. That's probably why he's filing for separation. I looked at those kids. My niece and nephew who I'd been using as an excuse to set boundaries, who I'd been so angry about being used as leverage. And they were just kids. Scared kids with a mother who kept abandoning them. I'll take them tonight, I said. I got them in my car, drove them to my tiny apartment and made them mac and cheese at 10 p.m. They fell asleep on my couch watching cartoons. Brittany finally called at 11:30. Where are my kids? With me. Where are you? That's none of your business. You kidnapped them. Angela called me because they were alone and crying on your porch. Where were you, Brittany? Silence. I'm keeping them tonight. You can pick them up tomorrow when you're sober. I'm not drunk. Then you're something else. Either way, they're staying here. I hung up and called Tyler. Told him everything. He was quiet for a long time. I'm getting emergency custody, he finally said. This weekend. My lawyer said with everything that's happened. Thank you, Charlotte. For getting them. The next morning, Brittany showed up at 7 a.m., pounding on my door. I opened it with the chain still on. She looked awful. Makeup smeared, same clothes as yesterday, reeking of alcohol and cigarettes. Give me my kids. No. You can't keep them from me. Tyler's getting emergency custody. The hearing is Monday. Until then, they're staying with him. You called Tyler? You turned my own husband against me. You did that yourself when you left your 4-year-old crying on the porch at 9 p.m. She tried to push the door open, but the chain held. This is all your fault. If you just helped me with the mortgage, if you just been there like family is supposed to. Brittany, listen to yourself. You're blaming me for your choices. I hate you. She was screaming now, loud enough that Mrs. Chen's door opened down the hall. You ruined my life. You ruined everything. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped fixing it. He broke down then. Just collapsed against my door frame, sobbing. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this alone. For the first time in months, I felt actual pity for her. You get help, I said quietly. Real help. Therapy. Maybe rehab. You figure out why you keep making these choices. Will you help me? Not with money. Never with money again. But I'll help you find resources. If you actually want them. She looked up at me, mascara running down her face. Mom's going to hate you even more. Mom already cut me off. I've got nothing left to lose. She left. Tyler picked up the kids that afternoon. And I thought, finally it was over. I was wrong. Because that Sunday I got a call from the hospital. My mother had collapsed at church. Possible heart attack. They were running tests. And despite everything, despite the disownment, the accusations, the manipulation, I drove straight there. Dad was in the waiting room looking 10 years older. When he saw me, he stood up. Charlotte. How is she? They don't know yet. He rubbed his face. She's been under a lot of stress. The thing with Brittany, the foreclosure, you. Don't, I said. Don't make this about me. I'm not. I'm saying she's had a lot happening. We sat in silence. Then, your grandfather called me yesterday. I looked at him. What did he say? That I've been a coward. That I let your mother turn you into a bank account and I said nothing. That I watched her destroy your relationship with Brittany and I enabled it. He met my eyes. He was right. Do you think a hospital waiting room apology counts? Because I didn't know how to feel. Charlotte, I'm sorry. For all of it. For the dinner, for not defending you, for... He trailed off. Your mother and I, we've made a lot of mistakes with you girls. Yeah. You have. I know sorry doesn't fix it. No. It doesn't. But it was something. It was a start. The doctor came out 20 minutes later. Not a heart attack, severe anxiety attack. Mom would be fine. They were keeping her overnight for observation. Can I see her? I asked. Family only, the doctor said. Dad stood. She's my daughter. We went in together. Mom looked small in that hospital bed. Fragile. She saw me and her eyes filled with tears. Charlotte. Hi, Mom. I thought. They said heart attack and I thought I was dying and all I could think was that I'd told you not to come to Thanksgiving and what if those were the last words? He started crying. Really crying. And something in me cracked open. What happened in that hospital room? Let me tell you, because what my mother said next completely changed the trajectory of everything. I was wrong, my mother whispered. About all of it. I stood frozen. In 30 years I'd never heard her say those words. The mortgage, your work, breaking into your apartment. Charlotte, I was wrong. She looked at Dad. We were wrong. Dad nodded. Grandpa Raymond called me. Told me some hard truths about how we raised you girls. That we made Brittany entitled and you responsible. That we used your sense of duty against you. Mom's voice cracked. That we were terrible parents to you. I sat down hard. What changed? Brittany showed up at our house yesterday. Drunk. Screaming that everyone abandoned her, that you destroyed her life. And I looked at her, really looked and saw what we'd created. Mom reached for my hand. I'm sorry, sweetheart. We talked for 2 hours. They told me everything. How Brittany had been lying to them too, how they'd convinced themselves using me was somehow helping her. When I left, Grandpa Raymond was waiting in the parking lot. How'd you know I was here? Your dad called. Figured you might need backup. He studied my face. How are you? Confused. Relieved. Still angry. That's fair. Healing isn't linear. 3 days later, Brittany checked into rehab. Tyler called to tell me. It was either that or lose the kids permanently. How are Mason and Emma? Scared but safe. That's what matters. The foreclosure went through. Tyler got full custody, found a small rental. Brittany got supervised visitation after completing 30 days inpatient. Mom called me every other day after that. Not asking for anything. Just talking, apologizing, listening. A month later we met for coffee. Brittany's doing better, Mom said carefully. She's actually doing the work. Therapy, AA meetings. She wants to talk to you when she's ready. Maybe eventually. But not yet. That's fair, Dad said. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. 2 months later, Mom called about Thanksgiving. I know what I said last year. But I'm asking now, will you come? Just you, me, Dad, and Grandpa Raymond. Small and quiet. What about Brittany? She's having dinner with Tyler and the kids. She's not ready yet. I thought about it. Hey. But I'm bringing the wine. Thanksgiving was strange but good. Just the 4 of us. Mom asked about my life, my work. Dad told stories. Grandpa Raymond squeezed my hand and smiled. No manipulation. No drama. Just family trying to heal. After dinner, Mom handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for exactly what I'd paid toward Brittany's expenses over 3 years. Mom, I can't. Yes, you can. Your father and I sold some stocks. This was always yours. We stole it and we're giving it back. I started crying. You didn't have to. Yes, we did. I'm sorry it took so long to understand what we'd done. Did I forgive them completely? Not yet. But I accepted their apology and the possibility that maybe we could be a real family. 6 months later, Brittany and I talked. She was 4 months sober, working full-time, living in a small apartment. I'm sorry for everything, she said. The money, the manipulation, the credit card. All of it. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. Good. Because I'm not there yet. But maybe someday? Maybe. If you keep doing the work. She nodded. Tyler let me have the kids overnight last weekend. First time in 7 months. I made them pancakes and tucked them in, and I didn't realize how much I'd missed just being their mom. We're not close, but we're talking. Slowly rebuilding something. Mom, Dad and I have dinner once a month now. It's not always easy. Old patterns creep in sometimes. But we're learning. And Grandpa Raymond just smiles and says, told you it would get better. He was right. So that's my story. The year I stopped being a doormat and became a person. The year my family fell apart and started putting itself back together. Was it worth the pain? Yeah, it was. Because I have boundaries now. Self-respect. And a family learning to see me as a person, not a resource. It's not a fairy tale. It's messy and more complicated. But it's real and I fought for it. Do you think I did the right thing? Have you been through something similar? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button. Thanks for listening. Sometimes the best thing you can do for people you love is stop saving them and let them save themselves.